Welcome to Fitzdog Radio. Your host, Greg Fitzsimmons, sits here with a not shaved head. It's gotten out of control. My grooming is less than subpar. The pubes are crawling. They're crawling down a little too far. The nose hairs are popping out. I like it shaved. My wife's got to do that for me today. You know, get it together, Fitzy. I shaved. Hadn't shaved in like a week. Didn't like it. Thought I'd play with the idea. You know, the beard thing on a guy, especially when you're 54, it's kind of a white flag. You're saying, I'm not really in the game anymore. You're not retired, but you're Tom Hanks. Like, if you're going to direct a movie, I guess you have to grow a beard. That's what people do. It's your way of saying, I'm not in front of the camera. I'm behind it now. So I guess the only time you want to grow a beard in your 50s is if you're directing a movie. Or you camp, if you go camping. Now, the best of both worlds is if you shoot a movie about camping. Then you can go fucking nuts. I blame Zach. Zach Galifianakis brought the beard back. There's no question about it. That was all him. He's been in Canada for a year on a small island. It's fucking crazy. Anyway, let's get to it. I think my volume's a little hot. Let's bring that down. Jessimae Peluso is my guest. I had a great talk with her yesterday, and you'll hear that in a bit. Jesus Christ, I just listened to David Bowie. I listen a lot of David Bowie. I don't ever get sick of it. And I think about like, oh, TJ Miller just confirmed for next week. Here you go. TJ Miller next week. How's that sound, everybody? My early memories, when I was in high school, our library had a turntable. And you could put on a record, and then there were headphone jacks, and couches, and a bunch of people could put on the headphones. And they had Heroes by David Bowie. I played that fucking thing. They must have had to order another one at the library because I played Heroes so many fucking times. And then I went to Europe when I was 18, backpacked around for 6 months, and I had a bunch of cassette tapes. Not that many, maybe 8 to 10. And one of them was Diamond Dogs by David Bowie, which is a concept album. It was based on the book 1984 by George Orwell. And all the songs, Rebel, Rebel, they're all about the song 1984. They're all about characters and stories from the book. And I had read the book my senior year, and then I dug deep. What a great fucking album. Anyway, I was just listening to a live album of his, LA 1974, and there's a song called Quicksand. Holy shit. Stop me in my tracks. You ever hear a song that you've never heard from an artist that you thought you heard everything from? Anyway, I was thinking about, like, I'm not gay, but I think every guy, not every guy, some guys aren't in touch with their other side, but I think most guys have a I'm not gay but person. No pun intended on the but. But with one T. I just feel like I could do that. He's dead, so that would be necrophilia as well as homosexuality. That's a double taboo in our society. Do you remember when he was in Ricky Gervais in Extras, and there was that scene where he's sitting in the VIP area of a bar, and then he starts talking to David Bowie, and then David Bowie improvises a song about him. Little fat man who sold his dream. Little fat man takes his own life. And then it was like, see his pug-nosed face, and then everybody's going, pug, pug. And Ricky Gervais is just sitting there, humiliated, trapped. He can't get up. And his facial expressions were fucking genius. That show was brilliant. So is The British Office. And then what happened? What happened to Ricky Gervais after that? He annoys the shit out of me. Like, when he did that HBO special where he sat down with Jerry Seinfeld, Louis C.K., and Chris Rock, as if he was the fourth line in that square. He was the foursome in that golf group. No, you're not, Ricky. Not by a fucking long shot. Your stand-up is terrible. It's sanctimonious. It just comes off as mean without being that funny. Don't like him at award shows. Nope. Not on board. Sorry. If I ever meet him, I'll probably be nicer to him than I'm being now. But that's me. That's me. I was thinking that about Anthony Robbins, too. Tony Robbins. Not a fan. I'm not a fan of guys trying to tell other guys to be more manly. You know, maybe I don't know him well enough. But we all compare ourselves to other guys. Like, maybe I compare myself to Ricky Gervais, and I think these British comics intimidate me because they're so fucking smart and creative, and they work their asses off. I don't know. Anyway, all right, let's get down to it. I want to cover a lot of business because you guys are very generous with writing in material that we read on the air. I love to do it. I love to hear from you. Fitzdog@gmail.com, or just go to the fitzdog.com website. Email me. Today we're going to cover nicknames. We're going to do say what's, and we're going to do a couple overheards. Catch up. Here's a nickname from Colby Wells. One summer I was a lifeguard. I may have inadvertently ruined this poor coworker's fun in the sun. His mom purchased a novelty plate for his car with the purest intentions, as he was a fan of Superman. When SPRMFN showed up in the parking lot, I inquired, what's the deal with sperm fan? Again, it's SPRMFN instead of Superman fan. Stuck like fly to paper. Hopefully Sperm Man took it in stride and is now a successful CEO. Yeah, that's tough. Moms try. I could say as a dad right now, all you want to do is help your children. You want to make them fit in. You want them to feel good about themselves. You try to do nice shit. Stay the fuck away. Don't buy your kid anything that you think is going to make them look cool. The kid should have known, though. The kid should have known. When I was working on a show, my friend Eric Lederman, he got one of those license plate for April Fools. He put a license plate frame on my car that said official pimp mobile. And I didn't notice it for about a week. And then I was at a gas station and this woman started laughing. And I go, what are you laughing at? She goes, I love your license. And I noticed it. And I said to Eric, I will never take that off my car. It was a fucking Volkswagen with a car seat in the back. 2 car seats in the back for the kids. And true to my word, I had that car for probably another 5 years. Never took it off. Ryan Gusick says, I'm a former Marine and did 2 combat deployments to Iraq. Well, thank you for your service, Ryan. Everyone has a call sign on the radio, usually branded on you by your platoon sergeant, and usually a cool name based off your last name or something crazy you did. I was the oldest guy in our platoon. My fire team was Saber, Crash, Sleepwalker, and me, Grandpa. I was 22. Man, those are some cold cards. When you're 22 and you're the oldest guy, and no matter how old you are, what's the age? What is the age where you don't feel too young and you don't feel too old? What is the age where you're not wishing to be a different age than you are? Is it 21 because you can drink legally? Or is it 19 because you're still got that high school big dick energy coming off being a senior? I don't know. Ivan Schmidt, thanks for the podcast, blah, blah, blah. I've had a couple nicknames. The first was Spam. because I was a fat kid. That's not nice. I'm a big guy. And then this is funny. In high school, I got the nickname Juan because I had a Letterman jacket where the cursive of my name, and remember this guy's name is Ivan, the cursive of my name made it look like Juan instead of Ivan. My smart-ass friend Toby pointed it out one day and it stuck. I'm a big guy, 6'4", 240. So it evolved into Big Juan, Gargantuan, Magic Juan, and Wonderful. I fucking love that. That's fantastic. You got some good, funny friends. You know, you don't know what kind of... Some people grow up... Like, my boys in high school were funny, dark, partied, fucking chased tail. We did it all. And we were tight. And I was lucky. They elevated me. You have friends that can elevate you, or you can be with a bunch of lamos, and it can bring you down. And you have no choice. If you grew up in a small town, what are you going to do? But this guy, with the friends that call him fucking Gargantuan, Magic Juan, I mean, come on. Where'd you grow up, man? Write me back. Let me know. I want to know where you grew up. Let's hit some binging. I asked you guys to... I was binging because... Long story short, here's some shows you guys like. Call My Agent. Somebody told me to watch that. What a fucking great show. Don't get me wrong. It's a French sitcom. That sounds like an oxymoron. How can the French possibly be funny? Guess what? Really funny. Really fucking funny. And good. And it's a dramedy, I would say. They're 1-hour episodes, and they cover a lot of story. Great fucking characters. Check it out. Dave Peters says the good Lord Bird in this dark comedy. Sometimes the comedy is so dark you're not even sure it's a comedy. Blah, blah, blah. It's got Ethan Hawke in it. Is this a series or is this a movie? I don't know. All right, let's do... I missed one of the nicknames. Emily Cox says there was a big, tall dude in high school, and word got around that he had sex with a girl on her period. From then on, his name was Big Red. Hey now. And you got to explain that. Why do they call you Big Red? I used to have red hair. I would dye my hair red if they started calling me Big Red, just to have an out. All right, let's do some Say What? Say what? These are things I've asked you guys to send me in that your grandparents say, maybe an old uncle. Classic little phrases that we don't want to lose. We want to perpetuate so they don't go away. James Broham says, my great-grandma Matilda, great fucking name. By the way, Dancing Matilda, I think it's the national song for Australia. Tom Waits does a great fucking version of it. Waltzing Matilda, not Dancing Matilda. Lived to be 101, drank a glass of beer with a hunk of cheese every night. That's right, you did. She would say tough T-ball jotters when you complained to her. Tough T-ball jotters. I'm going to try that one today. I'm playing golf in about an hour, and I'm going to say that to somebody if they hit a bad shot and complain. Sam Norton said, my father, who to this day still says, quote, I love you more than I love my luggage. Perfect example of Irish Protestant love, both sarcastic and sparingly given. Yes, I love you more. I'm not sure I totally understand it, but yet I get it at the same time. I think it's almost like a blues lyric, like I would hit the road and leave you. The metaphor of loving your luggage. Could be. Das Gibbs says, As long as I can remember, when it's sweltering outside, my dad will walk in, wipe the sweat from his forehead, and proclaim, damn, it's hotter than a two-peckered billy goat in a sheep farm. Billy goats fuck sheep? Is that true? I didn't grow up on a farm, but that would be something. A billy goat fucking a sheep. I guess they can catch them. I saw a Siberian Husky Pomeranian on TikTok yesterday, and I think That obviously, the father was the Siberian Husky. And that Pomeranian mother is still fucking limping around the house. All right, let's skip the other ones. Let's go to Overheard. We'll just do a couple Overheards, and we're going to get to my guest. Jeremiah Rickert. Not sure if you're still taking these, but my favorite Overheard, there's a diner here in Oregon called Sherry's, and an elderly man, probably about 70s, and his middle-aged daughter having breakfast. This was their exchange. Father, I've never trusted sausage. Daughter, then why did you order the sausage breakfast? Father, well, I always think the next sausage might change my mind. Isn't that the key to life? Isn't that it? That guy is in his fourth marriage, I guarantee you. He is a guy who has gone from job to job. VE says, last summer I was walking into a Panera Bread to pick up my lunch order. There were two young, attractive females sitting outside. I walked by them and I overheard, oh, I always use the one button, even if it's a number 2, because I have small poops. Obviously, she's talking about those toilet flushers where you choose 1 or 2 based on whether or not you're going to pee or poop. This woman, and I have that same dilemma. I squeeze my butt cheeks, I tighten my abdomen, I size it up. Is this going to be a 1 or is this going to be a 2? I generally go with a 1 because, I'm trying to conserve water. Folks, we got a sponsor today I care a lot about because I care about you guys. And if your mental health is in question, if you're having some depression, some anxiety, look, it's been a pandemic for 11 months now, and a lot of us need some extra support. So what you're going to do is you're going to talk to some online counselors from the people from BetterHelp. They give you a questionnaire and they match you with a therapist that's appropriate for you. Everybody's different. Everybody's got different needs, and they know who's got the expertise. They hook you up with somebody. If you don't like them, that's fine. You switch to somebody else. It's not always a perfect fit. I've gone through many therapists in my life. Some work and some don't. It's not a crisis line, but they will get back to you within 2 days. You will be set up in 2 days. Sometimes you don't have time to waste. You want it done right away. You can send unlimited text messages to your counselor, schedule weekly video or phone sessions. Obviously, everything's confidential. They're not going to write a memoir about you. And you don't have to sit in the waiting room. You don't have to sit there next to some lunatic and across from a lunatic. There are lunatics in those waiting rooms, but not when you're online. It's just you. You're the only lunatic. I'm kidding. This is for... Everyone's got a different level of anxiety. This, trust me. It never is not a good idea to talk. If you can afford it and they make it affordable, if you can't do it, they got some sliding scales they'll talk to you about. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and Fitzdog Radio listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Fitzdog. Visit betterhelp.com/Fitzdog. Join the over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced BetterHelp professional. Do it. Okay, let's get to my guest. She came to me through my producer, my podcast producer, Chris Denman, who also has a podcast, and he had her on. I'd seen her name. I'd watched some of her clips online. She's very talented, very special. I really like her. I had a great time talking to her. Very pretty, too. She's got a podcast called the Sharp Tongue Podcast, and another one called, she had one called Hilarious. She has been around for a bit. She's been doing it for 20 years. She was on Girl Code on MTV. You might remember her from that. She was on Safe Word on TBS, Carson Daly, Chelsea Lately, At Midnight, all those. So here's my chat with the great Jessimae Peluso. Welcome. The intimacy of a Zoom podcast. It's interesting. My guest today is Jessimae Peluso, who is coming to me from not far away. She's actually down in the marina, and I'm in Venice, which is about 5 miles away from each other. But we've never met in person.
No. Can I talk?
Yeah, please do.
I was going to say...
No, I'm one of those podcasts where the guy just goes. You ever do one of those and the guy just fucking goes? It's like, hey, Corolla, I'm glad I drove to fucking North Hollywood so you could rant about how homeless people are weak.
Yeah, it's definitely, there's some verbose speakers out there, and that's why they're successful. I mean, Joey Diaz, you go on his podcast, you're like, you know, just a little accoutrement to the situation, but it's great to have a front row seat to all those crazy ass stories. Do
you get high when you go on his podcast?
I can't not. It's just his aura. I feel like his aroma gets you high. He called me last night. I was doing a live and he called me and I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm having some tea. I just dropped 300 milligrams in it. I'm like, it's 9 p.m.
It's insane the amounts he ingests, 300 milligrams. That's enough for a party.
It truly is enough for a party. Like I do 1 milligram and I'm like,
no, not 1 milligram.
I'm such a lightweight. Eating, if I eat a milligram, I'm good. Smoking, I can smoke a lot, but edibles, it's a different beast, man.
Right.
And I've seen Joey just pop back a Death Star, which is like 1,000 milligrams, like it's a Tic Tac.
Yeah, I have these things. They're called Breeze. Holding them up. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can, I should get an endorsement for it, but it's 2.5 milligrams. And if I take one on my drive home, I have an office in Santa Monica, so it's a 5-minute drive. And when I get home, I feel like I've had like one drink. Like my wife has a glass of wine, daughter has a glass of wine. I have 2.5 milligrams of edibles.
It's perfect.
Yes.
It truly is. I'm working my way up to the 2.5. I don't know what my...
Wow, you are a lightweight.
People think I'm such a pussy. I'm like, you don't understand. I metabolize things so quickly. Like I'm a skinny bitch, but I just had a double cheeseburger. Before that, I had like a milkshake. I had fries. I poop so much.
Yeah.
So I think it has to do with my metabolism. I'm sure your listeners are really excited to know my bowel movements.
Do you use Poo-Pourri? Have you ever used Poo-Pourri?
Love it. It's necessary. I tell all the girls, it's the only way to shit at a guy's house. It's the only way.
You keep it in your purse?
Spray and lay, baby. How do you think I'm going to get some action in 2021? I've got 3 of them. I've got one in my purse. I have all over the corners of the house. Yeah. It's the greatest invention ever for the bitch who wants to get some dick.
Is. I think it might have actually been a pitch on Shark Tank.
What? Really?
Yeah. Yep. And
was it a female? I think it's a chick, a female company. She started this company.
Yeah.
Susie is her name. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was this girl, Sue McGinnis in Boston. I know you did comedy in Boston for a little bit, right? Is that where you started?
I started in Boston, and my dear friend Marty Caproni is a huge fan of yours. He's also a comedian. He's like, he's done all the shows in Boston. He knows all the clubs, just like Rogan from back in the day. Yeah, I started there.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. There's just so many good comics to learn from, and the bookers are all characters. They're all trying to scam you, so you're learning the business side also. But there was a girl, Sue McGinnis, who had this bit about going to a guy's house on a date, and he made dinner, and then she had to take a shit. So she drops a deuce, and then she flushes it, and it had a floaty that wouldn't go down. You ever get a floaty that won't go down?
All the time. It's one of those little teeny fish on the side of the shark. It's like, go, get away.
So she gets some toilet paper, and she takes it out, and she puts it in her purse.
No.
And then she goes back in, and his dog starts sniffing and barking at her purse. Sue McGinnis is one of those comics.
I know Sue.
Oh, do you really?
Yes.
Yeah, when you're a comic in Boston, you meet these other comics that you go like, if you were in LA, you would be a fucking star. But she's like a full-time nurse.
Oh shit, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, maybe she's not anymore, but she used to be a full-time nurse.
Damn, that's a commitment. See, that's the difference between a woman and a man. Like a dude, they won't you guys don't even flush the toilet. Like there's no qualms about you crapping, but women were supposed to not crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we have to come with accessories to shit in a house.
Yeah.
Which, that should be a course. You got to put a piece of toilet paper down first because you don't want to leave that streak.
Yeah, that's good.
You got to lay down some TP.
Right.
And also on the seat because I don't want any ass amoebas touching my butt. I don't know where you've been. Spritz some of that Poo-Pourri.
Wait, if you go to an individual's home, you will line the seat with toilet paper? That seems a little...
It's a little anal.
Paranoid, yeah.
Especially if you have children. If you have children, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to put my cheeks on that seat. My sister has 2 toddlers, and every time we leave them like alone, I don't know what it is about kids. You have kids.
Yeah.
They just love to tear apart the bathroom and unroll the toilet paper.
Yeah.
It's like a war scene in there. It looks like Vietnam.
One time my daughter, she was probably about 6, and she had a couple friends over, and I go in the bathroom and the toilet paper had all been pulled out, and the shower curtain, it was like a bathtub shower curtain, was ripped down and was hanging by one last little clasp. And I go, all right, I call them all in. I go, all right, Jeremy, did you do this? And he said, no. I said, Evan, did you do this? He said, no. And then my daughter's Jojo. I go, Jojo, did you do this? And she said, no. But if somebody did, what would happen to them?
I'm telling you, man, that's a smart chick. You don't have to worry about her.
No, she'll be a lawyer. She'll be a lawyer. So let's talk about your podcast. It's called you have 2. One is called Sharp Tongue Podcast, and one is called Hilarious, spelled H-I-G-H, people. That's the kind of marketing. That's the think tank that she's got working for. Jessimae, she doesn't just throw out the first thing that comes in her mind. Fuck no.
I actually bought the word. I was stoned in a hotel in Boston. I was in Boston. I was stoned in a hotel, and I was like, I was texting with a friend, and they were like, that's hilarious. I'm like, no, it's hilarious. And I was like, oh, dude, that's so genius. And then I emailed my lawyer, Chunk from Goonies, humble brag. I don't know what lawyer you have, but mine is literally Chunk from Goonies, Jeff Cohen, the greatest.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, he's been my lawyer for like 7 years. I emailed him. I'm like, how does one go about buying a word? He's like, well, we can get it done. And so now I bought the word, and I had to use it, because if you don't use it, you lose it. You have to show that you're actually utilizing the word in different various areas in the industry. So I was like, well, I'll just do a podcast just so that I could own it.
Wait, so does that mean, do you have the URL for that?
Mm-hmm.
You do? What did that cost you?
I'm still paying for it in my ovums. So I don't know if I have any. It's okay. I don't want kids anyways. I give them like a monthly allowance of my eggs, and we call it even Steven.
Right. There's going to be no good soon. You're getting up there. So you get high. So how does Hilarious work? You get high on the podcast with a guest?
Well, I did 1 season of it, and I invested in a dispensary years ago at the time of me purchasing this word.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was spending a lot of time with my partner. And so I was like, hey, do you want to just do this with me? So we basically interviewed a bunch of my favorite comedians and friends, and each episode was sort of about their life. Like Josh Wolf was on, and it was about getting stoned and being a parent. Like, how do you sort of navigate that? If you're a stoner, it's not so, acceptable in society to be high and also have children. How do you navigate that?
Right.
So it was just sort of like catered around each guest. Like Esther Koo was on, and it was about sex and how weed helped her with sex. So we just kind of found a way to make it work for each person individually.
Yeah, it's true. People all have a different relationship to pot, and I think people are finding a relationship to it. Like my mother has tried it now, because in Florida, she lives in an apartment building with all old people.
and they're all doing it. She's like, everybody's eating edibles, and the guys are all in Viagra, chasing the old ladies down the hallway, high with boners. It's a madhouse.
Oh, that makes me so excited to get older. Like that sounds more exciting than what's going on now. That sounds great. How do you enjoy it? Like how, you know, your parents, so how does it play into your life? Are you like an everyday edible or smoker?
Well, I'm what you call California sober, which is high and dry. I haven't had a drink in like 30 years.
Wow.
But I started smoking pot again. Actually, my kids were probably teenagers by the time I started smoking pot again. No, earlier than that.
Don't lie. Don't you lie.
But I really am like a guy who I go on the road and I bring a vape pen, and Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday night, I'll take a couple puffs when I get back to the hotel room after the show, because as you know, it's the loneliest room in the world.
Oh my God. The lighting. Why won't somebody talk to the designers about the fucking lighting?
Yes.
It's like, I might as well be on a table at the morgue.
Yes.
Why is it so bright? Why is it so blue? Am I going to be embalmed? What the fuck is happening in this room tonight? That's what it feels like.
And why do the switches all involve me running my hands over the body of the lamp in the dark so I can find the way it turns? And each one different than the other one.
Like you're that blind bitch from that Lionel Richie music video.
Hello, is it me you're looking for? Oh.
It's so stupid. It's really like a comedian should be hired, or at least a traveler, to design hotel rooms. It truly is not built for somebody who travels a lot. That's the irony of them. It's not built for that. It's built for like convenience for the hotel to get you in and out, and it's clean.
Right. Do you personalize the room at all? Like I bring, I got a nice Bose speaker that I bring. I always bring a couple candles. What else do I bring?
Do you bring your own sheets?
No. I would bring my own pillow if I had the balls, because I really hate putting my face on a pillow that who knows where the night before, that pillow was not under a head. That was under a pair of hips.
Or in between.
Balls slapping on it. In between.
Oh, Fangul, you had to bring it there. I didn't even think about the ball situation. I sleep with pillows between my legs. So I just assume I'm the only one who does that. I bring a pillowcase, but a question about the pillows in a hotel room. Do you think the hotel is washing the pillows?
I don't think so. No, I don't think they are.
Have you ever looked at your own pillow? Like when you take the pillowcase off, it looks like an aerial shot of Arizona. It's like all these weird stains in like crusty corners. Is it just my pillow?
I think it might be because you keep it between your legs. I'm going to call your vagina Phoenix from now on.
Oh my God, thank you so much. I was kind of hoping like Icarus or Ichapus, but I'll go with fucking
dry
Phoenix.
And crowded, just like Phoenix.
Especially through this quarantine, holy hell, dry and lonely.
And kind of racist, a little bit racist.
You know, aren't we all? Just
we are. We all are.
We have to be. It's survival. It's tribalism. It's the way it goes.
I'm racist, and I know you're Italian, but I'm racist against Italians.
Good. I don't blame you.
You know, I'm tired of us glorifying the Goodfellas and Sopranos, and it's like I grew up in New York. I grew up with Italians, and they're not that fucking charming. They really make them look a lot more interesting than they are.
And they're not that smooth. You know, I grew up with Italians, and they're not that smooth. A lot of them have gambling debt, and not like cool Robert De Niro casino gambling debt, like weird, touchy, lingering too long uncle debt.
Right.
Like we literally have Martin Scorsese to blame for the, you know, over romanticism of Italians in the culture. And I am one. Like you said, I'm a Sicilian, you know.
Yeah.
It's a different beast when you're like first generation coming over here and your family has sustained the ways of the country. But if you're like 3 generations deep and your name's Gino and you're the 4th Gino, it's like, okay, chill with the hair gel.
Right.
And like,
Right.
Toxic masculism. We got it.
Yeah, and they only hang on to the bad parts at that point. They hang on to the racism. They hang on to the misogyny, but God forbid they can cook. God doesn't know how to cook anymore.
No, are you kidding me? And the woman, it's all about with the woman, her place. It's like such a ridiculous mentality. And for some reason, a lot of them have beer bellies, like those low hanging beer bellies that kind of either looks like a beer belly or like a bloated, hungry belly. You know what I mean? Like they all have that and the windbreakers.
If you take your belt off and it's no longer straight, if it's like a U-shaped belt, lose the lower belly.
Please lose the lower belly and you lose the misogyny. Please lose all of that.
Have you dated Italian guys?
You know, I did date an Italian man, a very beautiful Italian man, but his family was literally from Italy. He lived in Bay Ridge. Yeah. He spoke Italian. He was classier. You know, he wore loafers. Yeah. He was not like, he wasn't wearing Pumas. This motherfucker was wearing loafers. Right. Yeah. And he had a dick like an Olympic baton that I think about some days when it's a rough day and just know that the world has gifts and treasures for me somewhere in life. Marco's
dick, was it tan? It was probably tan.
It was tan. It had a yacht. It looked just like his dick had like a Roth IRA. It just was successful and responsible and well trimmed.
It was a dick you could really like commit to.
Wow, a dick you could introduce to your mom.
Mom.
R.I.P. Love you, Nance. Sorry.
That's great. So how did you let him go? How did that not work out?
His dick was too big. We couldn't. No. It was.
No.
Yeah. Damn. It was way too big. Yeah.
Well, they say that wasn't the only reason. You have to change for somebody if you really love them.
And I didn't realize that I'd have to like add, I know houses have those additions, but I don't think you can make your cervix any deeper.
No.
And so I had to walk. Well, I couldn't walk away from the dick. I had to crawl away from it. I was crying both from the pain and the thought of leaving it behind to some other deep cervixed bitch.
That's fucking great. Can I tell you something? This is not a humble brag, and I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast before.
Oh, here we go.
I happen to be very well hung, and I had a girlfriend who broke up with me for the exact same reason.
Shut
I
up.
Swear.
Greg, you are full of shit. This is how you snagged your wife.
Here's how I'll back it up. No, my wife.
You stand up and your pants are off.
She's got. You just hear the. Yeah. Now I'm not going to show it, but I'll tell you this: I slept with several comedians coming up in New York, and one of them is super famous. I'll tell you after the show. And they all talked about it, and it became lore in New York City about the size of it. So I was going on Colin Quinn's show, Tough Crowd, and so Colin, we're in the green room with Colin and the other comics, and he goes, "So Greg, what is this? What's this I'm hearing about you having a big dick?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, let's see it." I go, "I'm not gonna pull it out." And this is before Me Too and all that shit, and his assistant was there and
the good old days.
Yeah. Well, I made sure it was okay with her, and then I whipped it out, and you got to say whipped when it's big.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. It slips out when it's small, and it whips out when it's big.
Yeah, it was way.
It makes a noise. It breaks the sound barrier.
Like a whip. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And so I pull it out, and he goes, "Whoa!" And then there was a black woman in the room who went, "Whoa!" And Colin went, "The black woman said, whoa." So that's it. And that solidified. We went on the air, and he talked about it on the show that day. And it was cemented.
Tell me you've made a cut of that video and you have it somewhere and you've posted it on your socials.
I have to find it.
Put somebody on that immediately.
Yeah, I know. That's a rumor you don't want to go away.
Excuse me, sir. That's the only way you should be brought out to stage from now on.
Right.
Your new stage name should be like Greg Doesn't Fit Simmons. You're
great.
welcome. You're welcome.
Fantastic. You are the branding queen. First, you come up with hilarious, and now Greg doesn't Fitzsimmons. That's amazing.
And they say weed kills your brain cells.
No,
Does it?
No. Why is it that having a big dick is so sought after? Because the truth is, for an average sized vagina, like you said, it's not pleasant. Anal sex becomes out of the question.
Impossible. No, thank you.
So why do you think society prizes the large penis?
I think from an American standpoint, bigger is better in our country.
Right.
Big burgers, double Whopper, big trucks.
Big tits.
Big tits. So it kind of falls in suit with the societal standard.
Right.
But from like an evolutionary standpoint, I honestly think women, and if they say they don't like big dicks, they just haven't fucking had one. I can say from my own personal preference, and I think it falls in suit with like an evolutionary standpoint, that it represents a large man and someone who can protect you, and the idea that you can, you know, grow and be safe and have this like giant creature that just happens to like not dry hump you, but hump you when he wants to. Kind of like Game of Thrones. Did you ever watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Don't you remember what's her name? Khaleesi?
Yeah.
And the big ass motherfucker whose name I can't remember,
but he rapes her on their wedding night.
I mean, how many people have that as a fantasy? They'd be lying.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy.
Wow, really?
Yeah, a little bit. Safe rape.
Yeah, safe rape. Right.
A rape it's like a non-rape rape. But I think that's sort of representative.
They couldn't have a safe word because she didn't speak fucking Guahanka or whatever his tribe was.
Guahanka. Was that Jason Momoa?
Yeah.
Why do you think that? I mean, that dude's famous off of his stature alone.
Yeah.
Have you seen Aquaman? I'm not saying he's a terrible actor, but holy hell, what was that watery mess? It's like Waterworld was like, ugh.
Oh, no shit. No, I didn't see that. He was bad?
Aquaman was just, historically is going to go down as like the Waterworld of our generation.
No shit, really?
Remember Waterworld with Kevin Costner?
Of course.
It was that bad. Wow. You know, big budget feature, and it's just, it's laughable. It felt like a fucking Coca-Cola commercial. But Jason Momoa, you know how many bitches went to that theater?
Yeah.
Just to see him in slick, like he had like a Poseidon. He had like that big ass trident. Yeah. Oh, are you kidding me? It would be such a letdown if he had like a light switch dick. It just wouldn't, nothing would make sense. Right. If his dick slipped out.
Yep. Now,
you know what I mean?
His would, the thing is, when you're big like that, the idea is that you've also got a big penis. And I think that's the beauty of mine, is I'm 5'8", $150. So it almost looks weird. You're what we call a
sleeper.
I'm a sleeper.
How long have you been married?
21 years.
Yeah, she ain't letting you go anywhere. She ain't letting you go.
No, as a matter of fact, we're going to make love. My daughter is working until 7:30. So when I'm done here, I'm going to go home and I'm going to make love to her.
That's sweet.
It's already been planned.
Do you guys have to plan it often? Is that what happens? Like in marriage, you have to plan it? Or do you also have spontaneous sexual encounters?
I would
in grocery stores and alleys?
Have we had sex in an alley? No, we have in a car a couple times.
Recently?
We went to somebody's house who was having like a big party, and we slipped off into a guest room and we made love in the guest room.
Wow.
Yes.
How did you guys meet?
At the Friars Club in New York City.
Holy shit. Is that open still?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the greatest place in the world. It was like a second home when I lived in New York. It was great.
That's amazing. You must have met a lot of really, like, probably people you looked up to and legends.
Oh, Henny Youngman and Milton Berle.
Oh my God.
And plus the coolest thing was like the working Catskill comedians, the guys that have been doing it for 50 years, you know, like Malzy Lawrence and Dick Capri and Freddie Roman. And like those guys were just like journeymen, and they were like comedians from that era were in the room, were funny. They were always putting on a show. They were there to make you laugh. They made you feel good. It was a different time. Like nowadays, comedians are all like, we're funny on podcasts, but like otherwise we're kind of depressed and we're going to therapy and we're worried about our careers. And, those guys just fucking drank and made people laugh. It was great.
I know. I feel so much about so many of the arts in that era, like music, if you look at society now, and I love self-care, I love therapy, I love all of that, especially from a relationship standpoint, but from an artist standpoint and like an art standpoint, sober music, that's what Creed, like we get Creed.
Yeah.
You get sober music, you're ended up with Creed. You get music on acid, you get Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
You choose your own sober adventure. No offense to anybody out there, but you just have to look at like the sort of relationship that exists between an artist and drugs and what that, maybe it's not so much the drugs that are the conduit to the art, but they definitely add to it.
Well, is it the chicken or the egg? Because is it more that somebody who has an adventurous spirit is going to do drugs, and they're also the people that are going to sort of attack their art or their craft with more of a sense of adventure and less boundaries and more courage?
You're probably right.
I'm not really sure because I'm trying to think of comedians. There's obviously been some comedians that were on a lot of drugs that were great, but their careers all ended early.
This guy right here.
Robin Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch Hedberg or
Pryor.
Greg Giraldo. There was a lot of people that, could have gone a lot further with it. Even like Lenny Bruce. I mean, his career was, once he exploded, he wasn't big for that many years before he just went down the shitter with, lawsuits and drugs.
Yeah, he wasn't around for that long.
No, I mean, he did his time, I think, as a struggling comic in the Village for a lot of years. But then once he got notoriety, it wasn't that long until it got to him. So, I don't know.
How can I ask, did something come to a head for you to become sober?
I blew a guy and I was like, this is not, no, I was like, I actually almost did. Drunk.
Were you whipping your dick out too much?
I was whipping there's no doubt that if I had continued drinking, I would have gotten Me Too'd. I would have been, I was just inappropriate. Me and my friends would go to parties. Do you know Tom Cotter? You ever heard of Tom Cotter? Mm-hmm. So me and Tom and this guy, Rich Seisler, we had this bet one time. We went to a party and everybody had to pull out their balls. And the last person to pull their balls back in won. But you had to mingle at the party. And so one by one, you would hear a scream on one side of the party. And you knew, all right, Tom got busted. That was a regular thing. I mean, it was just shit like that all the time that just would not fly today.
I mean, well, you say that, but did you see Joey Diaz pull his nuts out on the Comedy Store fundraiser Zoom?
He did?
Oh, in all of their wild, like water buffalo glory, he pulled his nuts out, stood up, and had them just right in the camera. It was like Bert Kreischer and I think Steve Byrne and a couple other guys. It is the funniest, most glorious thing I've ever seen in my life. I reference it way too much. Yeah. Especially in this Me Too world. I probably reference it way too much, but I just find so much enjoyment in it.
Yeah. I was working on when Joe Rogan hosted the Man Show with Stanhope, I was one of the writers, and Joey Diaz for the opening of the show was him running on stage completely naked, jumping up and down, his balls flying around, and Comedy Central saw it. And Comedy Central at the time had 2 female executives were in charge of our show, and then there was a production company that had 2 female executives doing the Man Show. And they watched it and they were like, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, no, you can't not do that. There is no better way of starting this show.
It's the only way to start the show, especially like, that time, I feel like that was the last of the Mohicans where you could get away with relatively anything without there being an outcry,
Right.
I always think of Stanhope's bit. I'm sure you're familiar with like the sensitivity around words and like imbecile versus retard and what those words implicate and why one is more triggering than the other. And it's the same with content.
Yeah.
You know, it's we evolve and things change, but they stay the same. Like there'll be another word or another thing to replace the thing that people are offended by now.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And, you know, my kids growing up, they're teenagers. Well, my son's in college now, but they're at the brunt of it. Like they are the PC police. Anybody that's got teenagers will tell you, like, the shit I say at the table, they get furious all the time. And it's not just like what I say, but it's like my opinions. And it's all like, hey, look, motherfuckers, I've been out in the world for a while. I'm friends with way more black people and gay people and drug addicts and the world than you've ever been exposed to. So don't tell me what I can say and think. But you got to be careful now. It really can. It's like you have a choice of either policing yourself and having whatever app tells you who can say what word at what time. It updates every 24 hours. You either have to play that game or you have to do what a lot of us have done, which is get a podcast, do stand up.
Yep.
Come up with content that's going on social media that will get you an audience and not worry about that world, because that world is fucked right now. And I can tell you, as a 54-year-old straight white man, my
giant cock.
Well, that's only going to hurt a lot of people. But I can't get a job. No one's hiring me right now. So What's the point? Just do the shit that, you know, that's going to let me have all the freedom I want and going to let me control my audience and what I do with my time, not driving to fucking Burbank to do an audition at 5 p.m. from Venice, you know, for a part I don't even think is funny.
Oh,
you know,
and
those days
you
are
just
over.
hate it. The auditioning process is so fucking brutal.
Yeah.
Like, part of me is like kind of excited that everything's shut down just for that alone.
Oh, totally.
Right?
What's the worst, most humiliating audition experience you've ever had?
God, all of them.
First of all, can you act? Are you capable of acting?
Yeah, I've auditioned so much. I mean, obviously, you know, the ratio is 1,000
and 100. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But there were definitely a couple times where I just flat out fucking forgot my lines.
Yeah.
And there's nothing more brutal than that. Because you go in and you've got one fucking job.
Yeah.
To remember these lines, or at least, you know, act these lines. And there were definitely a couple times where I just blew the audition. But then I'm sure you've experienced in your career, you have an audition you blow and then you end up booking it. And you're like, how? What the fuck? Right. Were they drunk that day? Why would they even think of me for this job? But it is it is a very uncomfortable process, acting and auditioning, I think. Right. Yeah. But you know, the whole like a sensitivity thing, I have a lot of jokes in my set about rape. You know, it's something I experienced as a child. 16-year-old, it was the first time I ever had sex. It was my introduction to sex. So I have a very strong relationship and reaction to rape and what happened to me. And as a comedian, I had to do something with it to turn it into something I could understand and share and try and at least have people who've also experienced have something that they can connect to and realize that there is healing on the other side of it. But with that comes a lot of people who are triggered by it, mainly women who have experienced it and they aren't ready to hear it. And so they become offended. Yeah. And to me, that's essentially what's going on. And I could be wrong, but that's the equation that I have chopped up to. Anybody who's offended by anything that is of a sensitive nature, either they're bored as fuck or they've experienced it and they haven't healed. Yeah. And last time I checked, I know you talked like about censoring yourself and all of that. I agree with that, but it's also not my responsibility nor yours to handle or manage other people's healing. Yes, exactly. And I always felt like with stand-up, if I do 5 shows in a weekend at a club, if I don't have 4 people leave over the course of the weekend because they're offended, I didn't do my job. It's not for everybody.
You should be weeding people out. Every person that leaves, there are 50 people that are more committed to listening to you because you're talking about truthful things in an honest way. And those other people, they're not meant to come back. That's fine. There's Disney Plus for people like that. There's
Absolutely.
People Magazine for people like that. They don't need to, you know, stand-up is not, it was never meant, it was done in smoky bars, in the basement, in the village, by people that were fucking raw. And like we talked about, a lot of them are on drugs and they're exploring and they're pushing boundaries. And now there's such an onslaught of these fucking clean comics that have managers after 2 years of doing stand-up and they're toothy and they have headshots and all they care about is like getting on a sitcom. They don't give a shit about comedy. And that's what's like, you watch most of the Netflix specials that come out, it's fucking garbage. It's like, all right, here's a guy who's Middle Eastern. He's been doing it for 3 weeks, but we're giving him a 1 hour special. It's insane.
It is insane. And there's so many layers to comedy. Like there's so much space for it. But then again, when it comes to like the industry standard, it feels like it's casted, especially when it comes to like certain platforms that present comedy specials. It feels like it feels like a circus. It doesn't feel real, you know? And I thought of Patrice O'Neill. Do you remember what Patrice used to do? I caught him at the tail end of his life because I also moved to New York and did stand up in New York for almost a little over a decade. He used to just wait for, 20 minutes and let people walk out and leave.
Yeah.
And then he'd be like, okay, and now we can start the show. Right. He would walk people on purpose.
Yeah.
He would be as offensive as he could. And then he'd get down to his brass tacks and be like, okay, now my people are here. Let's talk about what I really want to talk about.
Yeah, I think Bill Hicks was like that too. Bill Hicks walked a lot of people and I was in the room watching them leave. And it was always like, it was empowering for the people that stayed because they felt like, all right, we're finding ourselves here. We're finding ourselves as a crowd. And this is a guy who's not going to be dictated to by the crowd. He's going to have an agenda. He's got a point of view, and then he's not going to check it. He's going to just bring it.
He was fucking great.
Yeah, he was the best.
He was so good. I love that when he did acid and took his dad's car and the car spoke to them. It was like one of those, the first cars, like the door's ajar. Right. And we had to pull over on the side of the highway and think about it for 15 hours. How can the door be ajar?
He was such a great performer. He took these long pauses. He just owned it. He just like the way the words came out of him was just so, it was so like in
poetic
control. It was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. His pauses were definitely, he was brave to do that shit. Cause so many comedians and myself, in the past, before you sort of get humbled and go through life and slow the fuck down, you feel the need to fill the space with everything. Yeah. And Bill was like the antithesis of that. He, a lot of breath. There's a lot of space and darkness and dead air in his stuff. And that's almost as powerful as having like a solid punchline, taking that moment to just sit there and think. And also one of my other favorite things about Bill Hicks is one of those specials he did where he was in all black, kind of like Johnny Cash outfit with that black hat.
Yeah, in Montreal.
Yes, in the Arizona, the background, that beautiful like sunset background. Do you remember that? His last walking off stage, he didn't walk off to like a killer joke. He walked off to a message of love and hope and unity. And I just thought that was so baller.
Right.
And such a risk to take. He was a badass. He was definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think he's an example of what you're missing today, which is a guy who's lived a life, who's danced with the devil. He's been to the crossroads 100%. And he's traveled and he's failed and he's loved and he's like, and then you do stand up. Now it's like, I went to my parents paid for college and then they paid for me to have a studio in Chelsea while I took classes at the UCB theater. And then I did a one-man show and I got an agent and they have no life experience. I've not, whatever. I don't sound like the guy who's shitting on the young comics. You can
shit on them. You can shit on them. I'm here for it. I'm about to make some popcorn and just listen to you shit. Are you kidding me? I feel the same way. And like, this year will be like my 20th year since I started stand-up.
Oh, no shit. Really? Wow.
Yeah. And
I didn't think you were that old. Damn.
Thank you. A lot of moisturizer, and I have a small Cantonese child holding my skin back behind my head.
Did you ever get work done? Anything?
No.
Nothing at all?
Nothing.
Well, that comes from growing up in upstate New York where there's no fucking sun for the first 18 years.
Yeah, it's really good. There's no sun. There's a lot of domestic abuse, but those two things, if you do it right, you can have really good skin. Really good skin.
So the domestic abuse, is that it keeps it puffy like Botox?
Yeah. Also, there's a lot of blood flow.
Okay.
You know, when you get bruises, you can, that's it. The blood flows to the bruise and then it heals. And so it creates, it's like a natural Botox. Yeah.
Right. And then you have ice packs on it, and that cold
100%.
is really good to tighten up the skin.
Yes. It's what the Russians do. It's the Russian way, truly. So
wait, so you had a Sicilian dad. Did your dad ever hit you?
No. My dad was such a pushover. I had him wrapped around my fucking finger. I was the youngest of 4 girls.
Yeah.
I was his pride and joy. We were like fucking 2 peas in a pod. He was
that's nice.
The greatest. He really was a total fuck up.
Yeah.
Gambler. And, he later in life, he loved to drink, but he never was like one of those angry drunks that would call crying at 2 a.m. about the war. Right. He was a silly goose who sometimes would forget your birthday, but he was a great, great, great dad. He was amazing. So much fun.
Is he not with you anymore?
No, he passed away in 2018. He had Alzheimer's. He passed away.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
And then you just lost your mom in November.
I did. I've had a really record-breaking 4 years. In the past 4 years, I've experienced an emotionally and physical abusive relationship with somebody who had borderline personality disorder, which I didn't know was a thing until I dated this person. And
that's a tough one. That's the one that I have a friend who's a therapist, and she said the one condition I will not treat is borderline personality.
It's almost impossible, even with behavioral therapy, even with intensive behavioral therapy. It's so much of an ingrained disorder that it's very hard to even chip away at it. I had to get a restraining order on that individual on Valentine's Day 5 years ago. Then a couple years later, my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Then I lost him a year later. Then I had another boyfriend. We broke up. Quarantine happened, lost my whole tour. And then my mom just died. So I am ready to get out on the fucking road. I'm ready for the stage.
I'm sure. I know. The stage really can be very, very soothing after that. I remember my dad died when I was young. I was about 25, I think, when my dad died. And
that must have been brutal.
That was tough. But I'd been doing stand-up for like 3 years. And I remember like worrying about going back on stage. And the first time I did, it was like the best half hour of my life. It was such a freeing, like, it took my head away from it for a second. You're getting all that applause and acceptance. And there's this really sense of unconditional love from an audience that you get that, I've been doing it for 30 years, and I'm so used to that being ingrained in, my sort of psyche and what there's food and air and sleep. And for me, getting laughter from an audience, and that part of the equation has been changed for a year.
Yeah, it is ingrained. I just started thinking about that through quarantine. It's like it's a part of your routine. And so your mind, body, and soul is reliant upon this outlet. And I'm sure for you, when your dad passed, that's when shit really changes. When you go through a loss like that, all the previous shit you were talking about, I don't know about you, but I looked at everything I was talking about on stage prior to my dad passing and just kind of going, I don't know. I'm not that person. None of that fucking matters to me.
Right.
I don't care about it. It doesn't resonate. I only want to talk about real shit and the raw shit and the things that everybody experiences. And that's, also probably why when you went on stage and did a half an hour after your dad died, you were received so well, because you're talking about, you're putting your yourself on the line. There's some blood, sweat, and tears in that. That's
and
what the art is.
Even if you're not on the nose and talking about the sorrow, your emotions are right on the, no matter what emotion you are hitting in your stand-up, it's right there and people can feel it.
Yeah.
Wait, so how did your mom pass?
It was kind of like a freak thing. She went in she had like her colon flipped, which I didn't know was a thing. And it's a life or death situation and a 50-50 shot. So you have to get surgery when that happens. So I coincidentally, through this quarantine, I had booked a Netflix show. And so I was filming this Netflix show when this happened. This was like the first big gig I had gotten this entire year. And I just was like, fuck, and I had to fly home and go be with my mom. Obviously, I didn't think twice about it. And luckily, Netflix was just so supportive and didn't even think twice. I mean, it's so hard to film in this new normal with all the new regulations. They were like, do whatever you need to do. Didn't give me any sort of guilt or make me feel like shit. So I flew back and we thought she was stable. And I flew back to LA to finish filming. And it was just a roller coaster from there. What ended up happening, which I think is something that happens a lot with people, is the thing that brought her into the hospital wasn't the issue. There were all these other underlying issues that sort of unearthed themselves after her colon surgery. I mean, her colon surgery, she healed from within a couple weeks, but she was in the ICU for like 84 days, I think. And
shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
84 days. Her head nurse cried when she passed away. That's how close she became with those people.
And were your family members able to even go in the hospital at all? Yeah,
my sister and my mom's boyfriend, they were able to be with her. I had to say goodbye over FaceTime, which was fucking crazy. That's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
And so I'm on like an iPad, and my sister's there, her husband, and my mom's boyfriend, and my mom's obviously, in her final stages. And I'm just an iPad. I'm just a fucking iPad. And my sister's holding me and she goes to her husband, here, hold this. And I'm like, hey, I'm not a this. I'm a fucking person.
Hold this.
Help me.
Hold this situation.
Put it. I was like, hey. Oh God, I am a human being. And, not to be too macabre, but we decided to give my mom comfort care towards the end. And, which is basically a fuckload of drugs.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to let them pass as they pass. And so it took my mom a little bit of time to go, and it wasn't really apparent when she was passed yet, because it just was a hard thing to indicate and to detect. And so the nurses ask you to leave the room. They administer all of the end of life drugs, and then they have you come back in, and they say it could be any moment now. So from the time that my sister and my brother-in-law and my mother's boyfriend come back into the room, it had been like a couple minutes and not much was happening. And my sister was like, is that it?
Is that it?
It's Super Bowl commercial. This is the end of a fucking
right. Yeah. I mean, if you could kind of say that at the end of anybody's life. Is that it? Is that it?
It's a very poignant statement.
Yeah.
And then, they're checking and then my mom's boyfriend goes, is that it? And I was like, can you two stop with the, is that it? Do you have somewhere else to be?
Yeah, right.
Are you going to binge on The Crown? Where the fuck do you have to go?
Is that it? So there's some extra morphine in there, right? That she's not going to use?
So after this, do we pick her up and do a little dance, a little weekend at Bernie's?
Right.
Do we take her downstairs or?
Yeah. Do we have anybody have a couple of buffalo nickels to put on her eyes? Isn't that what you do?
Between me being knocked over and then being impatient about my mother's passing, I was like, "Fung,
oh
ghoul.
My God.
Are you kidding me?"
So you're in LA watching all this happen.
Yeah, like it was the worst Netflix series ever. Spoiler alert, they die in the end. Right. Oh my God, that's so funny, Greg. You can use that. There's something there. That's fucking funny.
Yeah, that's good. So all right, well, look, I mean, I guess there'll come a time when you guys can all get together and have a memorial or something, right? Have you talked about that?
Yeah, we have, because the other odd thing about this whole quarantine is that all the standard protocol for birthdays and parties and funerals are obsolete right now. So we couldn't even lay her to rest. So it's been strange sort of juggling these emotions that normally have a place to go. There's normally a little bit of, releasing them in these standard traditions that we have. But I've always been an eternal optimist. I always try and look at the bright side of things, maybe because I've experienced so much hardship in my life that's been my survival mechanism. But I'm a glass half full person. And I really do think that there will be a better outcome for us having to sustain and hold out and get these like dead mom blue balls for so long. Like, when can we have a party? I think it'll be a party and not a fucking funeral. And that'll be perfect, because she was very social and amazing. And it'll be more of a celebration than this, like, immediately posthumous darkness that so many of our traditional, especially white people funerals. Holy hell.
Oh yeah.
What the
Nobody
fuck?
knows what to do, and nobody wants to be there, and then people start drinking, and
there's always an argument.
Yeah.
There's the uncle that holds you a little too long.
Yeah. There's
the jealous friend that shows up from high school that makes some comment about how you look, and you're like, okay, well, I didn't know this was a fucking fashion show, Stacey.
Yeah, right. And then you've got like somebody who brings inappropriately young kids to the actual funeral, and they run up and down the aisle, and you want to say something, but you can't. The whole thing is like a Curb episode.
It truly is.
Yeah.
The whole thing, it's how to not act in society is what a funeral is.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable, and people relinquish themselves so much to tradition, I think, to not have to deal, because that is a little bit more difficult than just being told what to do. It's the sheep versus the wolf, and the follower versus the leader. I don't know if you agree. One tradition I think is really fucking weird and I don't want to do is stand in a receiving line behind a fucking casket.
Yeah.
Especially now in COVID, I'm glad that that's probably going to be done with, but I don't want to be in a hug line and forced to shake hands with my dad's classmate from 1952.
Yeah.
I just don't want that kind of responsibility. My dad is dead. I should be able to just be drunk in the corner with no bra or makeup and not be questioned why I look like shit and how come I don't want to shake Uncle Larry's hand. Because I never fucking met the guy, and he just shows up.
And how about this? And then you, because you're a comedian, are expected to get up and be funny. You're gonna speak. You have no choice. You got to speak. And now everybody's just, she lives out in LA. She's a comedian. She did a Netflix thing at a very sad ending. But she should be great. I would imagine she's got to be great.
Get heckled.
Oh.
I actually did at my dad's funeral, because he was the reason I did stand-up. He got me into stand-up. I don't know if you know any like upstate road dogs, but my dad was really close with Mike Goss. Did you ever hear of Mike Goss?
No.
Mike Goss was legendary. He was, probably equivalent to one of your New England road dogs that never really made it, but they just were so good. He started off with Bobcat Goldthwait, and Bobcat Goldthwait and him were like best friends. And my dad was always going to Mike Goss's shows.
Yeah.
And so when Mike Goss would come back from the road, all the comedians would come back, like Nick Mara and Mike Goss and Moody McCarthy, all these guys.
Yeah, Moody McCarthy.
Yeah.
Who else was part of that gang was
who?
The guy that plays SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh yeah. What's his name? He's from upstate New York.
Yeah, he was good friends. He went to Bobcat, went to high school with Bobcat.
Yes.
Oh, what is his fucking name? He's a really good comic too.
I can't this is going to really bother me because I can't think of his name either. But there's so many guys like that. And they would all come back from the road, like on Sunday, and do a breakfast together, all of them. And my dad would go because he was friends with a couple of them, and I would go.
Oh, no shit, really?
Yeah, I was
wow.
a preteen, like 12, 13, 14, 15. I went to these breakfasts all the time. And I just was like, what? Where are these guys? They go away on the weekend. They get to travel. And what do they do? They got me very intrigued that there was this life outside of this little city that I lived in. And it got me, thinking like, oh, this is something I could do. Because I think it's hard to know that depending on where you live, like unless you're from New York City or Boston, if you're from a smaller town, sometimes you don't realize your potential because of your environment, because the walls feel so close. Yeah. The boundaries feel so close. So I think my dad was definitely influential in me seeing outside of the city limits and realizing there was something more.
What did your dad do?
He had a few jobs, but his main job was he was a housing inspector for Syracuse, the city of Syracuse, for about 25 years.
Do you think as an Italian, he was taking bribes on the side? Is there any doubt he was not?
There is zero doubt that my father, oh my God, he was doing something like that because he just loved a deal. He loved to gamble in any way. Growing up, like,
did you have a nicer car than you should have?
That's funny you say that. I was just going to mention the cars. My dad loved to get cheap cars and he loved to work a deal. And Rich was his mechanic for my entire life. I still know Rich in Syracuse, New York. And my dad would get a car for like 2 G's, like 1,500, 2K, like an Oldsmobile, and he'd run it into the fucking ground. We must have had like 10 used cars. Yeah. And he bought a shit car for my sister, a shit car for him, a shit car for me. We all had these shitty cars. And because they would subsequently break down in one way or another, we'd have to shift the cars around because one would always be in the shop. And so when I'd get my car back from my dad, who was also a very functional alcoholic, and I would come to a stop sign, all of his empty beer bottles from underneath my driver's seat would hit my ankle. It was back every time. The motherfucker loved a deal. He just
that's great.
Loved it so much. Yeah. He was so fun.
So whatever money he was taking on the side, he was losing at gambling, probably.
Oh my God. Barkino, bye. He wasn't hanging on to any money. Yeah. And that's like, you were talking earlier about like the weirdness of funerals and how it's just there's strange traditions. Another strange thing that people ask are like, did he leave you anything? Mm-hmm. Like, would he leave you in his will? And I was like, bitch, it was a bill. Like he owed people money. My dad didn't leave us. And he left us with debt, not a diamond. Like
Papa was a Rolling Stone. When he died, all he left us was a loan. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wait, but he would have left the money to your mom. And then when your mom died, then you had the will. Who went through the will for your mom? Who was the executor?
My sister and I actually had that set up a few years back. My mother was really responsible. I mean, she loved shopping and had a bunch of credit card debt when my parents separated when I was younger, but she had a, savings and an investment, and she definitely crossed her T's and dotted her I's. And actually, my mother's boyfriend showed up to my sister's house after my mom died, and there was a folder. And it said, shit you need to know, in her handwriting. And it was everything we needed.
That's great.
And, people don't realize how devastating and detrimental it can be when somebody dies, if they have anything. And she didn't have a lot, but there was enough that needed to be organized, quite a few things. And she didn't have much. And so people who have things, if you don't get your shit in order and get your ducks in order, it can be a bloodbath. Yeah. Mourning turns into clawing each other's eyes out over a summer home in the Catskills.
Right, right.
So luckily my sister and I love each other, and it's just her and I, and we're both very rational, but my mom had it all laid out, pin passwords account numbers, people's names, everything was just, we didn't have one issue.
Wait, I thought there were 4 girls in your family.
That's from my dad had a marriage before my mother and I.
Oh, got it.
And when my dad passed, it was a little bit trickier.
Those bitches didn't get any of the money.
Not a no. Good luck, Karen and Chris. Good luck.
We got the house in the Catskills and the folding table.
I got 4 Oldsmobiles, bitches.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's great. All right, listen, before we go, I want to ask you a couple things. I always make notes. If it's somebody that I don't know, I go through and I make a little script, in case they suck, I have something to talk about. And I didn't even look at the script because you're such a great guest.
Oh, thank you.
But now I want to go to the script just because there's things I'm going to want to ask you that I'm going to look back on later and say, why didn't I ask her about this?
Yeah, do that. Ask me whatever. Like I said, I'm an open book.
What is this shit about John Stamos? You're kind of stalking him on the internet. When did that start? Why? And how has it paid off in any way?
What's funny is I was going to have a different POV in my apartment. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give him the nice corner. But since you asked.
Oh, shit. That's prime John Stamos. That's like, I just got Full House. My agent said I got to upgrade my headshot.
Are you kidding me right meow? Squirt material right in the fucking living room.
Wow.
He's Uncle Jesse.
That's why you got the glass frame. Keep that squirt sauce off of his face. Damn.
Protector. I actually, Oil of Olay sent me this. I was doing a campaign for them one year when I was doing a show called Girl Code on MTV years ago. And I've always loved him. And they knew that. And they sent this to me along with a boyfriend pillow. So it was like a lonely girl starter kit. But yeah, I just, Full House? Come on. People always give me shit. But I've always loved him. He's like my childhood crush. And
wait, but I've seen on Twitter, I looked at your Twitter feed and you are reaching out to him currently to come on your show. Has he ever responded to this insanity?
I retweeted that. Like I sent a message out like 3 weeks ago and I was like, hello, come on the podcast. We all know your marriage is probably going to crumble soon. There's been a few times where he's responded.
Is he still with Rebecca Romaine?
No, she's in jail.
She is?
No, I'm thinking of what's her name, Lori Loughlin. I was actually thinking of like his Hollywood wife. No, he's with the cute, really cute girl. She's adorable, and I'm sure they're very happy, and their son's adorable.
Yeah,
it's all in fun now. Like it's hilarious, and I think it's amazing. I obviously would love to have him on my podcast because there's so much I want to ask him, but actually, when my father passed away, and Stamos has tweeted me back, and we've had like messages back and forth on social media. But when my father passed away, he actually posted a really sweet message on my Instagram. Really long, nice, heartfelt message.
That's sweet.
Yeah, he's like, people have reached out and let me know that your dad passed away, and then he also was filming Jeff Ross. One of Jeff Ross's shows. I think they were filming that like historical roasts. And he was filming with my dear friend Yamanika Saunders. And so he sent me a video with Yamanika, saying his condolences for my father passing. So we're basically married.
Oh yeah, it sounds like it. It's gonna be awkward when he comes over to your apartment to make
totally awkward.
And then his pictures on the wall, that may actually turn him off.
Or do you think he might like looking at himself?
Yeah.
You're not that pretty for that long and you don't like what you see in the mirror. That man.
Take some Windex to that glass before he comes over because that's going to be embarrassing.
I like a nice film. I like to leave a little residue.
Can I tell you my John Stamos story?
Please.
So I'm really good friends with Bob Saget. So he invites me to his birthday party at a mansion that used to be where the Manson murders took place, up in the Hollywood Hills. So the guy who produced Full House bought the property, and they knocked it down because of the murders. And he built this insane. I mean, I've been to mansions. This blew them all out of the water. It had a water slide from the top floor going through the house to the outside to a grotto to an unbelievably large yard that had a fence that overlooked all of Los Angeles. And anyway, so I walk.
Sounds like a fuck palace.
It's a fuck palace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So me and my wife are walking up to the house, and it's one of these things where they have a valet parking attendant to park your car because it's the Hollywood Hills and there's nowhere to park.
Yep.
So we walk up the driveway, and I can hear good vibrations. And I was like, wow, this sounds live. It sounds like it's a live, people are playing good vibration. Walk into the house, look to my left, and there's Mike Love from the Beach Boys. And there's fucking, not Brian Wilson, another Beach Boy, two of the Beach Boys, and John Stamos on drums, playing good vibrations. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And so I had never met him before, but we have a connection because we both are big Stern fanatics, and we've both been on Stern a lot. And so we had a lot to talk to. So we totally bonded that night. And I will introduce you at some point.
I'm holding you to that.
All
Greg
right.
doesn't fit Simmons.
Okay. I think we have a title for the podcast. All right, listen, Jessimae Peluso. People can watch you and listen to you on the Sharp Tongue podcast. Also, Hilarious is not happening anymore.
It's there. It's available. I just haven't posted any new episodes yet. I'm not sure. I have a lot. I'm juggling, but Sharp Tongue is up every week. Yeah.
You also do an Instagram and Facebook show called Weeds Day, which is sponsored by High Times. That goes up every Tuesday.
It's every Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Weeds Day. Got it.
Yes.
You are a mind like that. How do you bottle it? How do you?
It's hard. It's exhausting. It's very exhausting.
And everything else, check out her tour dates. Will be flowing in once this goddamn breath AIDS goes away.
Oh, I can't wait.
In the meantime, write lots of good material. I look forward to meeting you in person. I can't wait.
Me too. I'm going to have to use some of the shit we talked about today for the stage.
Yeah.
I'm just going to use this as my notebook.
Yeah, right. Good. And I got a couple good things out of it too, including track down that clip where Colin Quinn reveals to the world the size of my Johnson.
150%. Yeah. And
That's
welcome to the Big Dick Club.
That's its nickname, 150%.
You're the BBC. You're in the Big Dick Club. You should get a jacket for your dick soon. There's going to be like a members only jacket for your dick arriving and your balls.
Right. A couple handbags.
Yeah, just little bags for your balls, but a nice jacket for your Johnson. Tell your wife congratulations.
I know. Well, you may have to send her. So maybe I'll get a cameo from you, and you can tell are you on Cameo?
I am on Cameo.
All right, I'm going to have you send my wife a cameo about my penis.
I truly would love to. Nothing would bring me more joy.
All right.
You just have to have me meet Stamos. That's going to be my price.
And we also have to give a shout out to Chris Denman over at Midcoast Media for bringing us together.
Chris, you're the best.
And we'll catch you next time. Thanks again.
Thank you. This was amazing.
Okay. Take care.